Hi guys, thanks for coming. I'm Leslie. I'm the director of the art programs here at PRC. Before we kind of jump in, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me and how I've used Photoshop before, and then I want to hear from you guys about kind of why you wanted to come today. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my background. So I run the art programs here at PRC, and I have a fine arts background. So all my education has been in fine arts as well as art therapy. Photoshop is something that I learned, oh boy, 1998. That's when I learned it. That's a long time ago. So when I was in college, I took a digital arts class and learned a little bit about Photoshop. And the rest of the time after that, when I was in school, and even today, I self-taught myself everything else with Photoshop. So I am not an expert, but I know some stuff, so that's good. What I usually would use it for is because I'm an artist. I would use it to manipulate and change photos, or I would scan drawings or paintings that I made and edit them to put them in like a portfolio. I'm an animator, so I animate on the computer, and to do that, I use Photoshop again to scan my drawings and images and get them ready to put them into the animation software. So Photoshop is used for a lot of graphic design and graphic arts work. In our case, for today, we're going to look at Photoshop's Elements. This is Adobe Photoshop Elements 11, which is what's on this computer here. We don't unfortunately have it on the computers in the classroom. We have it on the ones in Westmont. But if it's something people are interested in, we can probably get a few copies on the computers in here. Photoshop Elements is a more basic version of Adobe Photoshop, and it focuses more on people that are wanting to do some photo editing at home, not as much professional stuff. It's better for consumers and people at home. So it doesn't have as much of the professional grade kind of graphic design stuff that the full Photoshop has. It's a lot easier to use, and it's I don't know, a third of the cost of Photoshop, so it's a much less expensive version, and it can do a lot. So it's pretty good for what most people would need. So I'm gonna do stuff on this computer, and hopefully you all can see. And I'm just gonna there's a couple different modes, a couple different options. I'll try and kind of go through things slowly and show some things. Let's just get going. I'm gonna open up an image. When you open up the Photoshop Elements program, it gives you two options. So there's Organizer and there's Photo Editor. I'm not going to go into Organizer. It just helps you organize your folders into your photos into folders based on, I think, like date and the content of the photos. I'm not going to get into that too much. Let's just jump right to the Photo Editor, because that's kind of where all the magic happens. Okay, so this is basically what the screen's going to look like. Much like most programs, if you want to go to File to open whatever kind of file you want to work with. So in Photoshop's case, it's only going to take picture type files. So a JPEG, a TIFF, a GIF, a .png, which I don't even know what that even stands for, but for our sake, anything in a pictures or photos folder can probably be opened up in Photoshop. So one thing I've learned the hard way: never edit the original file. Okay, always make a copy, because if you do something to the original photo and then you're not happy with it, you can undo, you can get, but sometimes it's just more of a headache than it needs to be. So just always make a copy, because I've learned that the very, very hard way. So I already made a copy of a photo that I just found on the pictures folder on this computer. I don't know who took it. I don't know anything about it. So You can go to open. I'm going to go to open recently edited because I've already opened it. So there was a photo called ducks, and I made a ducks test, which I just made a copy of it. I just copied and pasted it in the folder. If you don't do that and you just open the original image, right? So I'll just open, let's see. Let's go with that. So now I've just opened the original file. If I've forgotten, and I do that, I'm gonna go to File, Save As. Whatever. Okay. And it's going to take me to the folder, and I can save it under a different name. So I'm going to call it test. It's going to save it as a JPEG, which is a picture file. JPEG is the most commonly used file type. All these settings you see here, you don't have to touch them, just leave them. The quality is high, that's good, that's fine. But now I've saved it as a different, as a copy, and I can start working on it. But again, I made a copy initially to work from just so that this wouldn't happen. So it's a picture of ducks, which you can kind of see, right? There's some little ducks there. It's a nice photo. Okay, so on the top here, where my mouse is, can everyone see my mouse okay?
Yeah.
Is it hard to see? Okay.
Yeah.
See, there are 3 modes for editing. There's quick, guided, and expert. Guided and quick are 2 that are commonly used for just doing some quick fixes on photos. Guided, and I'm not actually going to get into guided too much, but guided takes you down this list of various touch-ups, and it basically kind of tells you exactly what to do and exactly how to do it, which is nice, but it doesn't give you as much. I mean, it gives you some control, which is great, and it'll let you even, like, there's this button here called Auto Fix. If you just click it, it'll just fix this. We're in the brightness and contrast menu. It'll just decide how it thinks, the photo's brightness and contrast should look, and it'll just correct it for you. And that's good. It's good to see it and try it out and see what it looks like. And if you just want to do a little bit of basic corrections, then doing these auto fixes could be really helpful because it'll just tell you exactly what to do. So, but let me go back on the bottom here, done and cancel. So I'm just going to hit cancel because I don't really want to go there. All these touch-up tools on the side do different things, right? So brightness and contrast is going to deal with darks and lights. Brightness making the image brighter, dark making the image darker. Contrast is going to deal with your blacks and your whites, so your darks and your lights, and changing the value scale. Sorry, I'm an artist, so I use a lot of fun artsy words. Changing the value scale from kind of grays to like sharp blacks and whites, right? So let's look at that for a second. Brightness is going to make, if I scroll it down, see I'm scrolling down with the arrow, it's going to make the image darker. And if I bring it more towards the right, it's going to make it lighter. Contrast, the closer to the left is going to make it lower contrast. As I move it closer to the right, it's higher contrast, so you can see the lights and the darks popping a little more. Can you see that from where you guys are? Okay. So you can manually play with those things till you get it to where you want it. And I'm kind of looking at the area that I see the most contrast in is the trees over here. So I'm kind of using that as a frame of reference. And there's really, all this is kind of based on artistic personal preference, right? There's really no right or wrong way to change these levels. It's just how you want your photo to look, right? This, to me, is the area that has the highest contrast because I can see the darks and lights right in those trees. So I was kind of using that section to determine my darks and lights rather than using, a section where you don't see as many darks and lights. But yeah, no, that it was controlling the brightness and contrast of the whole photo. Yep, whole photo. Yep. All these touch-ups will do the whole photo. Something else I forgot to mention over here before I even continue with the touch-ups, and I'm sorry for jumping around, but on the left is our toolbar here. In the guided mode, it just gives you the little magnifying glass over here, which is your zoom tool, and it gives you a hand, which is like your move tool. The zoom tool, you can, you can click right on the image to zoom it, or you can come down here and scroll to zoom where the scroll bar is, and it will tell you the actual percentage. You can also do that up here. They just like to make things really easy and give you a lot of options. Like here, you can zoom here, you can zoom here. If you click on it, it'll just zoom it in kind of little by little, right? And then you can see an area that you want to work on. If you click over here on the little minus magnifying glass and then click, it'll zoom you out. The hand then will help you move the image once you've zoomed in, right? So now I can zoom here. So I'm going to zoom in, and it zooms in right from the middle, so it zoomed me in on my little ducks, but I want to go over here to the trees, so I'm going to click and drag and get over to the trees. So I know this is frustrating because you can't actually do it on your computer, but clicking and dragging is how you would move the image around so you can see different parts of it. So now I can go around and see all the different parts, and if I want to zoom in more on those trees, ooh, look how pixelated. I can do that. If you zoom all the way out, then it gets tiny. You know, you just want to make sure you can obviously see it and that you're getting the full image. On the bottom here, these fit screen, fill screen, and print size. Print size is going to show you, if you printed it, exactly what size it'll be. So on your screen, that's the size that it would be if you printed it. Fit screen is kind of usually the best because it's going to fit it to your screen so you can see what you're doing. Okay, as far as touch-ups go, there's a lot. The only ones that I'm really kind of interested in is, I correct skin tones. We don't have it. We're not going to correct the duck skin tone, so let's just not go there. So I'm going to go to the quick setting. Okay, it's going to do all the same things, but just allow you to do a little more of your own stuff. So now the toolbar has changed. We have zoom and we have the hand. So those are the two we know about. The quick selection tool. You mentioned in the back changing one area of the photo, right? So the quick selection tool is how we can do that. So I don't know how well you can see, but there's a little plus. It's probably really hard to see. The mouse changes into a little plus, and that's how we would select an area. So you kind of click and drag to kind of select an area that you're interested in. So I'm kind of going with the trees right over here. And I'm just kind of trying to get the general area of the trees. So it's probably really hard to see, but you can see a little dotted line around the trees. And that means that that part is selected. So now that I've got this area selected, this would be anything I do would just happen on this area. So SmartFix takes all of these options and tries to correct them in one fell swoop, okay? So it just, again, Photoshop is pretty smart, and it decides with all this information, the exposure, the levels, the color, the balance, the sharpen, and the focus, I'm gonna pick what's gonna look the best to just fix this image in one shot, right? I'm not going to really deal with that right now because I like to go in and do things myself. Exposure is like your brightness, kind of a fancy word for brightness, but see now, do you see what's happening? As I move it down, just those trees are darkening, right? And as I move it more to the right, they're going to brighten, 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 brighten. Does everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty neat.
It is cool. So it makes it so you have more control, right? Because you might have a photo that has a section that looks fine and the section that's not looking so great. So you can actually then pick that section and try and develop it a little more. Okay, here's the thing about these fun tools over here. It gives you options too. If you go and run your mouse over all of these, it's going to show you some different options in dealing with exposure from darkest to lightest up here. It's the same thing as sliding this bar. Because Photoshop Elements is a more consumer-based program, it's giving you a lot of options to control things so that if people aren't so comfortable with the slidey bar, they also can go to these different images and pick, go through these and see what they look like, right? Okay, so the blue outline is actually the one you're on, but the little symbol, this you can't hardly see it, but that little arrow with a little dash under it is always going to be the original picture, right? Okay, so that's exposure. It's going to, again, do your darks and lights. If ever you do something that you're not happy with, edit, undo, right? And the shortcut for that is Control-Z, so you can always do that. And you can keep undoing. You can undo everything you just did in the past. So now I'm undoing my selection, my little quick selection. You can undo, you can redo as many times as you want, which is nice because, okay, now it got me back to where I didn't have anything selected.
I'm sorry, where did you click to undo?
Edit, see the edit menu?
Yeah.
And then undo is actually your first option. You can also, so now I'm going to redo brighten and contrast. You can also hit Control-Z when you're holding down, and it'll also undo. Undo is kind of the best thing ever, because if you've gone too far and you've played with stuff too much and you don't know how to get it back to the normal, you don't remember how far you push the brightness and change the colors or whatever, undo, 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 and then you can get back to the normal. Revert also, I think, will do it. It will revert back to the last time you saved. So if you're kind of playing and you're not sure, what you're doing, if you don't save, then you can always get back to the original version. If you save, then it's kind of harder, but you can still undo, undo, undo. You can keep undoing until it goes all the way back to normal. So, okay, so going down this menu over here. Oh, actually, no, I'll go back to the tools menu. So red eye reduction, that only would be used if you had a photograph of people, and you know how sometimes the lighting or what have you will turn the eyeballs red, and it's this weird phenomenon, and who knows why it happens, but you can use the red eye reduction to change that. Obviously, we're not going to do that because we don't have any people, but maybe we can get to that later. Whiten teeth. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, again, that would be used for a picture of somebody, a person. I'm not going to whiten the duck's teeth.
You could whiten the feathers.
I could whiten the foot, yeah, right. Okay, text tool, that's if you wanted to add text. So if you were like making a poster or making a card for someone or whatever, click on that T, that text tool, and it's going to allow you to make a text box. So what it does is it makes a little cursor box, and you just drag and make it the size you want. Underneath here is all your font information, so you can change the font, whatever, go with Rockwell. You can make it bold, and you can change,
I didn't see where you said text tool.
oh yeah,
It's a T.
there's a T, yep. Yeah, it is hard to see from there. I would have been helpful to have handouts, sorry folks. But so if I just start typing, oh, there we go. Hello, ducks, whatever. Anyway, that allows you to just kind of type, and then if you highlight it, you can change so if I don't want it bold, I want it italic, I want to change the font, I want to change the color, there's a color palette, you can make it whatever color you want. Okay, so anyway, fun to play with text, not really necessary, but kind of fun to do.
So when you make your box now, are you clicking?
Clicking and dragging.
Again, please, and just show us how you do
You
it.
can. Undo type tool. There you go. Okay. So when I go to the type tool, It's hard to see.
It turns into like a little
whiteboard.
box.
Yeah, it's a box with a little eye in it, like a little cursor. And if you click and then drag, it makes the box. And then you can type, hello. Let's keep going through these tools so we can get to them all. Crop. Okay, so cropping is just going to cut part of your photo out. The crop tool looks like that. It's like a little box with a slash through it. So let's say I've decided that I just really like the ducks and I just want to focus on the ducks. That's what I'm doing. I actually want to cut the rest of it out, right? Then I'm just going to hold down and click and select around the ducks. And see how it gives me a check mark or a little, what would you call that? Do not, yeah, strike that. Yeah, I don't know. If I click the check mark, it's going to crop it for me. If I click the red circle thing, it's going to say cancel the current operation, but I'm going to go ahead and just crop it. And now it's cropped it for me, and we just see our nice little ducks, which really are swans I'm seeing. I think those are swans, but that's okay. Yeah, so you can crop, but now, if you were to save it, that's it. This is the photo, right? There's the rest of it's not there, which is why we made a copy in the first place, right? But I can undo that. Let's keep going down this list on the right, right? So we did exposure. Levels deals with shadows, midtones, and highlights. So again, it's going to show you, this is your original over here. When I start scrolling through to change things, it's going to change. This is kind of like the contrast. This is more similar to the contrast where the exposure is like doing the brightness and the darkness. But this is changing the ratio of kind of shadow to highlight and midtone. So you can see, you can click on auto levels and auto contrast and see what it does. And Photoshop decided that that looks best, but you can decide for yourself. Color. Okay, saturation, hue, and vibrance. They all kind of do different things. Saturation is going to change the intensity of the color. So if you scroll down, less intense color, as in kind of going into black and white. If you keep going to the right, it's going to get really intense and really vibrant and really funky looking, which is fun for some things, but, you know, maybe not for a realistic picture of ducks. But again, you can go through these and kind of play. Hue. Hue kind of talks about the color profile and pushing some of your red, greens, blues, yellows. So when you scroll through, it kind of shows you what it would look like with a certain kind of tone. And again, you can go through these and see if you like one, you know. And you can revert back to normal. Vibrance, let's see. I'm not familiar with vibrance. Vibrance looks like it's just very subtly changing the color from kind of a grayscale mode into color. It's not going to be as intense as saturation, but it might help you brighten it a little bit without the saturation. Balance is tinting. So if you want the whole image to have a bluish feel or a yellowish feel or a reddish feel or whatever, you can scroll through and tint with a certain color. The scroll bar is kind of nice because it really gives you more control. So that's just another kind of fun thing you can do. Sometimes if you want to make a photo look older, you can do more kind of browns, you know. But again, that's how it is normally. Sharpen. Sharpen is talking about focus. So if you have a really blurry photo, right, that happens sometimes, you can sharpen it. Or if you have a photo that you want to actually blur, you can blur it. So sharpen. If you'll notice, it's getting really, Yeah, it's getting really, I don't know what a good word for it is, but kind of, it's almost kind of getting grainy. When you sharpen things too much, they start to look kind of grainy and pixelated. But if you want to, if there's an area that is kind of blurry that you wanted to sharpen, you could. One other thing I just want to go into is filter. So on your menu options, filter is going to give you a whole bunch of different things you can play with. There's a lot of different stuff, and I think it's more just kind of fun to see what they do. So like artistic, if I wanted it to look like it was an image done in colored pencil, it will show you a section and what that would look like. Then it gives you all these different options. Neon glow, plastic wrap that's supposed to look like it's wrapped in plastic. But anyway, those ones are just kind of fun to see what will happen when you play. You can blur. Oh god, yeah, there's so much stuff you can play with on this. Ooh, really blur it. Yeah, too blurry. And then same, you can sharpen. I guess you can't. You can pixelize. Oh, distort. Let's give it an ocean ripple. Ooh, nice. But anyway, those are just kind of fun things to play with. They're not very practical.
How do you paint one area? Like if you there's one area has those dust. If you want to paint it over just that area, how do you do that?
To get rid of like an imperfection.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Okay. For what you're talking about, we're going to expert. Yep.
Okay.
So expert settings on the right. We were in quick,
Oh.
and now we're in expert.
Oh.
Expert.
Yeah.
You can take a. There's a lot of tools on expert. This tiny one over here, it looks like a little medicine dropper. It's called the color dropper.
Oh.
If I wanted to paint this whole part white over here, I would pick something that's white in my image, and it's going to change the color down here to white, right? And now I can use my brush, and I can paint right over it. And now it's going to stay.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you want. You're an
That's
expert.
nice.
You need to go to the expert settings. Can I move
Did you
you?
pick the color?
I picked the color by, I used my color selection tool, which is there's a little eyedropper.
And then do you have
And I clicked, so take a look at this little box here, this little color box. Right now it's white. If I click over here, it's going to turn whatever color. I click on whatever color I want to sample. So if I want white, then I go to the brush and I do more white.
Where did you pick up the white?
I picked up the white on the photo. So with that color dropper, I just clicked on the white. I mean, the ducks are pretty white. I could get them. But.
Oh, you can pick up the white on
Yep.
the
So
photo.
see, if I click over here, it's going to be green. And now if I take my brush, it's going to be green, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then you have to switch back to brush when you paint it. Do you?
Right. Color dropper to brush. Yep.
Color dropper and
You got it. Let's say I want to do a whole, let's say I want to, for the heck of it, just to show you, I just made a little box here. Can you see that rectangle? Let's say that I want to, I want that whole box to be white. So I use a color dropper to select my white, and then I should use this paint bucket. Oh, no. It's not gonna, oh yeah, there we go. And you can fill in. In theory, I can make the whole box white if I keep clicking.
I have a question. If you wanted to change their position in the photo, can you do that?
Ooh, good question. Okay, so you can select something. You can use, there's two select tools. The box, we'll just make a box around something. This lasso tool, you can draw it around it and just make sure it connects. and it will also select it. Then you need this tool, which is different than the hand. This is a move tool. It's a little arrow and a little plus sign. And then if you click on what you've selected, it'll move it.
And you can put the ducks in the trees if
You can put the ducks wherever you want. This gaping hole, yeah, that's an issue. You can, well, I suppose you could actually use your lasso and go ahead and copy. So does everybody know the shortcuts for copying and pasting? Okay. Your control button, which is on the very bottom left of your keyboard, 2 away from Alt. Control C copies it, and Control V pastes it. And now I've got 2 of it.
Covered it.
But then you'd have to go back and blend and do a lot, but excuse me. But that would be one quick way to do it, and then you could just mess around with trying to get it. The spot healing brush has a,
It actually looks cool. It looks like it's got that shadow.
it does kind of look cool, yeah, surprisingly it does. The spot healing,
Into the sun.
that Band-Aid brush, you know, actually let's go back to quick so we can see it better. This Band-Aid brush here, that spot healing tool, if you go to the spot healing, it gives you a couple different types, and one of them is called Create Texture, and that might help us in this. Let's see, if we kind of get an area that we want to copy and we paint over, let's see what, oh yeah. Yeah, let's make our brush bigger. So I want to take some of this orange here. Yeah, so you can start to blend stuff a little more. Yeah, you'd have to do a lot of blending and stuff. There's a layer menu option. If you wanted to add more ducks or something else completely from another photo into your image, you could put it on a new layer, and it would allow you to manipulate just that part that you've added, with this whole image being the background layer, and whatever you add being the next layer, if that makes sense. The expert is the way to go if you wanted to copy and paste something from another image, because the expert allows you to go through all the different images you've opened, and the quick doesn't. So up here on top, I can go through different images that are open right now in Photoshop. So like this one, if I'm trying to, let's just do this. I want to add some bushes to my ducks. Will you let me copy? Yeah, see, expert's much better. There we go, okay. So yeah, there you go. You can add things from different photos, but you have to do it on a new layer. Thanks for your patience, yeah.